Hi everyone, I'm Calvin Fu, Principal Advisor of 167. Thank you very much for taking the time to tune into this video today. In today's video, I'd like to share my thoughts about operating model. Operating model to me is the very core structure of how a business, product or service is delivered, or it could be how a function or a project delivers its intention. And not look at operating model like the operating blocks of a team. If we relate that to a home, right? A operating model using a home as a example would be that its bathrooms, its kitchen, its dining areas, its bedroom, its outdoor area. And if we want to deliver an experience of a home, we need all these pieces of a home to be operating at its optimum level. And if we factor in engagement or life cycle considerations, then we could then look at these modules as perhaps when we first step through the door, the first place that we go to is the kitchen. The second place after kitchen, we might be the living room. From the living room, then we might head into the outdoor spaces. And from the outdoor spaces, perhaps we're then going to the bathrooms. And then from the bathrooms, we go into the bedroom, perhaps for a rest. And then the next morning, that cycle starts again into the kitchen. For example, you're making a coffee. And then from the coffee, you're going to dining. You're then going to the outdoor space, perhaps. And then from the outdoor space, you're going to the bathroom. And then, and then from the bathroom, you're going to the bedroom. So it's like a cycle. So what I've just described is you got an operating model where you got the key operating components, you've also got a life cycle. And if we factor that into an organization, whenever I first step into a new project or function or organization, what I instinctively do at the back of my head is I start putting together pieces of what the operating model is. And this could be through, looking through the internet, understanding through the different diagrams or service statements or org charts and, different information, or doing a discovery phase where I talk to various stakeholders, I understand what are the key components, the end-to-end delivery structure, things like what the goals are as well. And as I then go through information as well, discovery, at the back of my head, I'm starting to understand, all right, so these are the three, or four, five key different areas that looks at, cradle to grave or an end-to-end process to successfully deliver an operations. An operating model is not a strategy. An operating model is not an action plan. Neither is an action plan a strategy. An operating model is not an implementation program. An operating model is also not an org chart. An operating model is not a vision or a mission. These are all different components. And an operating model is something that if I'm not able to articulate onto a piece of paper, either means that I am confused or I'm unclear or unsure about the intentions of the organization or the team, and it also means that I might be overcomplicating what operations really is. Hence, if I can't put the operating model into paper, it just means that I need to do a lot more work on understanding what the intentions and the purpose are. And an operating model is also essential in understanding what the opportunities of insourcing and outsourcing is, what the values or the quality focuses are on each section. An operating model also allows us to understand where the bottlenecks of the processes are. An operating model also allows us to create strategies that align to the evolution of that particular team, organization, or project. My very early involvement or experiences in operating model actually came from my dad. My dad, who was running his business, and I remember hearing explanations or him taking me through his operating model where he was able to identify 3 or 4 key areas in delivering his business goals. and how it was then able to drive or ensure quality management within each space, be able to strategize cost, in terms of keeping costs low in each space, and also consistently taking a step back to understand how the entire process is delivering its capabilities from end to end. I would like to encourage everyone to think about what the operating model is. When you have an operating model that's understood by the team, and you're able to align it with your strategy, you are also able to build your structure to support the operating model. And this operating model is then able to align with delivering the business's mission as well as its vision. Then you're actually getting a team that understands, all right, this is the evolution of a product and a service and in how we're delivering it. You might have an operating model that's evolving, because you could have different components of operating model that might only kick in the second year or the first year of your strategy. Or you might have an operating model where during this period it's a consolidated effort, and in the next year you might split that delivery area into two, because with operating model and everyone's clear on your intentions. You might also have different areas where you could have operating models where you are going to introduce different kinds of automation, which then split certain functions to demonstrate that you got technology to support the operating model. So what I want to do next is to take everyone through perhaps a simple demonstration on how I create an operating model using in my head. I believe it's a very simple, straightforward process, and I'm just going to give it a go to do this demonstration. Okay, so we have now cut into a different screen mode. I am on the left-hand middle side. If you can see me there, hopefully you still see me clearly. And what I typically like to use is I like to use just a PowerPoint, nothing complicated. You can use other tools. You can use ClickUp. You can use a whiteboard tool, on Microsoft Teams if you like. You can use there are many tools out there, but for me, I like to use a PowerPoint. It's just the way I work, right? So you can find your own better way of work. Putting in a PowerPoint also enables me to share this document and collaborate with others. What I'm going to use example of something I'm familiar with, right? That's easy. I'm going to use a procurement function. Let's just say a procurement function it's a more service-oriented function, and it's a function that's got, let's just say, 3 different category teams. Let's just say it's got even a contract management function, as well as it's got governance, and it's got a vision. So I'm gonna make stuff up as we go, just to give you an idea on typically what I would do in an operating model that sort of helps me think. Within this operating model diagrams, you would see typically I'll put in head count as well. I'll put in the intentions of those areas, and I'll try to structure in such a way where it's an end-to-end lifecycle process. All right, I might cut back on the talking and just we get cracking while we do this. So I'm going to delete this item here. Right at the top of the operating model, I usually put what I call a roof, and I think most of you are familiar. And the operating model at the end should look like a house, really. And I usually do a roof because that's that's typically the vision. So I'm going to put the vision here. I know everyone can see that. And the vision, for example, could be to be, just excuse the formatting, we will clean that up a bit, to be the trusted procurement partner. Okay, so I'm just gonna think this is black. I'm just gonna put make that smaller. I'm gonna respell this trusted. All right. So just an example. To be the okay. So the vision, the trusted procurement partner of XYZ Co. Underpinned by digital procurement and partnering. And value partnering. Okay, so I'm just gonna say that's the vision. Okay. All right, let's clean this out a little bit. I might even move that. All right, just bear with me as my hands start to warm up a little bit. My fingers start to move a bit more. There we go. Let's push this up. There we go. Okay. So we got a vision here. That's the roof. So just imagine you're in a home, right? And the top of you, it's your vision. And then I'm going to think about. So we think about procurement. I'm going to draw a few other boxes here. And for this example, I might just go with something neutral. I'm going to go with no fill, and I'm going to go with gray. And I'm also going to just, that's fine. Okay, so it's a bit of clarity there. So I might think, all right, we got a procurement team. I'm going to go, typically we will have, I'm going to fill this with white. There we go. And I'm gonna go sourcing team. There we go. Let's go black on this one. And I'm gonna push this up. So I'm gonna think about what's the cradle to grave process, right? So we could have sourcing and that's by itself in terms of the structure. And then I'm gonna go again. There's no hard or fast or right or wrong. It's whatever gets you connected best. And then I'm gonna go. Perhaps I have got different categories. I'm gonna go. Okay. So I'm going to say there's 4 different teams here. I'm going to go indirect. I'm going to go direct. Let's say ICT by itself because it's a huge team. And then I might say property because this business has got a lot of properties. Okay, and then you will see here we got similarities, right? So with this, what I'll do now is let's just call it the category function. Okay, there we go. And then I'm just going to line top because I'm a little bit of an OCD there. I need everything to be structured. So you can see here we first start any assignment with sourcing, and then it goes into the category function. Obviously, we know that this is bidirectional. We don't. I usually think that less is more, so we don't have to put in too much information. We won't. And then within this area, what we could have is a. Bring this up, right? Depends on what you're gonna call it. So we could have the strategic team. Depending on how your procurement runs, it's no hard or fast rule again. And then you could have your contract management. Yeah. Okay. So what we got here is we have got a category-centric function where we have each team, and we've got the strategic capabilities there. We've also got the contract management, and then perhaps underpinned by, can we call it the operational excellence team, if you will. And this usually covers things like governance, technology, process. I typically put technology as the underpinning foundation, because we look at processes that need to be automated, and it's not just a particular area, but the entire function needs to be underpinned by technology. Digital procurement is essential. The more mundane tasks we're reducing, the more bandwidth we have to focus on strategic activities such as your customer functions. All right, so what we got now is we got a sourcing, we got a category capabilities there to deliver that function. I'm just thinking, what else do we need? And perhaps in this more modern area, I'm going to put partnering at the front. So we actually start with your partnering conversations. We have got the category functions that we'll talk with, and then we've got a bi-directional sourcing team that on the right hand side delivering that. And might even put a supply chain where we have inventory. So I'm just going to move this here. Okay, so what we got here is there's many ways on to represent this. There's no one best way. For me, and typically I would start with one draft, and then I'll move into several different drafts. And for me, it's what makes the most sense. So what I can see here is, if I talk this through, then right at the start of the process, you got your left-hand side, and that's your partnering team. And your partnering team typically would be customer-facing or stakeholder-facing. How do I say? Maybe genre-centric. And typically in organizations, you could look at this like internal account managers, if you will. Okay, and then of course we are underpinned by operational excellence, right? So we've already got process, governance, and technology, which means that when I say process, governance, technology, means it's clear on the category requirements and the structure, and everyone operates to that, even though you got a category function that sits in the middle. All right. However, this is also a category excellence function. I'm going to call this a category excellence function, which then it's more, we're trying to drive more process-driven capabilities to standardize. However, we still got a strategic capability within. And as you can see, your partnering individuals are highly relationship-driven, so they're going to work with customers to understand, genre or value-centric requirements. And once that comes in, then we'll figure out, all right, is this something we need to be sourcing? Because I like to split sourcing because it's a team that contracts and expands, and it depends on requirements, right? Sometimes you could have a lot of activities or expiring contracts coming, and you need a larger team, and that's where you expand it. And also, sourcing is process oriented, right? You shouldn't be going out sourcing and like you're creating a new piece of art. It should be process oriented, whether you are creating your procurement strategies or whether you are creating your scopes for technical or not, or non-technical scopes. It should be process oriented, or whether you are taking it through your open market process, how you review and select, your preferred respondent first, and then you move to negotiation, you move to awarding, as well as your post-award where you're onboarding. So these should all be process oriented, and there should be a governance under that. And with operational excellence that support your sourcing process, there should be heaps of technology, right? So whether it's tools or whether it's collaborative solutions, technology is something that you would, or tracking timelines or customer clarification, it should be as much technology there as you possibly can. And once you source, then you move into the areas of the partners could have been working with the stakeholders on, let's just call it an indirect category item. Indirect category item, maybe it's a coffee machines. Okay? Coffee machines, everyone's favorite at work, or tea machines, if there's any tea machines there. And it's this company spends a lot, some or other spends a lot on coffee, because coffee gives everyone happiness and it's critical in producing the activities. And then you would have your strategic area, your strategic person, right? Of course, in each area you should have your lead. So if we then understand, right? So if I reduce this slightly here, you will know that each section, drawing's not too good in a moment. Okay, you would have say John, who manages this Alright, who's the manager? There you go, like that. Ooh. John manager, let's just call him John manager. We got Sue manager. Alright, and then you have got Jane manager. Yes, you guessed that right if you've guessed Jane. And you could have Bo manager. So, and then we, of course, we might have it's a big company, right? So we got a partnering lead, and the partnering lead, it's Toby manager, who is in charge of partnering. Your sourcing manager could be a Troy manager. There you go. And then I'm just gonna shrink this a little bit so it looks different. And of course you got your supply chain and inventory. That could be your Adam manager. Yeah, so you have got this, all these different individuals, right? And yep, there you go. So there's good clarity now on that, on who runs which section, which category function, who drives the strategy. And then under your strategic areas, you could have your various, if we can call them, your category specialists, if you will. Alright, so you got a team of CAD specs. I'm gonna shrink this as well. Alright, and then Tom and Jerry. Wonder why Tom and Jerry. And then there you go. So you could have a category specs here. And then there you go. Just move this up here. I might just put a no field in there. And I'm also going to remove its paragraph. Oh yeah, removed it. Let's do some gets, but it's fine, you can't really see it. So your category specialist, I am going to spell it out in full. Ta-da. Oops. Alright, so you got your category specialist here, right? Let's just say. Let's move this smaller. And then you could have your contract managers, if you will. People who are more perhaps tactical, if you will, your contract managers. Whatever you want to name them, yeah. No, I'm not. Maybe a Winnie. And Pooh. Yep. Okay, so your contract management. So as you can see, as you move in each team, you've got a structure in terms of which category. For me, a category is like a business unit. It's value focused, and in order to create a structure, a contract management and strategic initiatives or needs to be within the value center that you're trying to deliver. Every organization might be different. I'm not saying that's right or wrong for sure. I'm just trying to give an example here. So you move from partnering to sourcing, and then you move into your category excellence function where you got strategic and contract management, and then perhaps there are goods, and that's where you dive into your inventory and supply chain. And of course, your inventory supply chain, you will have things like warehouse management. You will have how you manage your inventory systems, your cataloging, your tracking of scanning, perhaps your de-stuffing and sorting efforts, right up to your pick and pack, and your logistics and your whole logistics chain within that space. And also you also got your demand planning in different areas, without diving into too much of that. And then we are all underpinned by operations excellence, where you got process, governance, technology. Maybe we call it. And also you might have a transformation team there that looks at your different areas, such as your people and your digital transformation in that space. And if we look at the top, then we've got our vision, right? And that's what connects everyone in there. So when if I were to flesh this out and I go, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we do over the next 12 months. Is our operating model. I'm able to go in and say, so Toby, you're gonna need, 8 is probably a little bit too much. There are 5 key areas of the business. I'm gonna give you four FTEs in that space. Troy, you've got half a billion dollars worth of sourcing activities. It's heaps, and I want them all tomorrow because they're expired or they're expiring. And I'm going to say you're going to have 15 FTEs. All right, I'm going to be able to work that out, and then I'm going to go, or your contract managers. For example, you might have. It's going to duplicate this year. You could have, Sue. Huge, direct, right? Direct means revenue oriented. I'm gonna go. You got a huge portfolio. Your portfolio is worth $500 million or whatever, and I'm gonna go. You're gonna need 10 people there, right? So, and maybe 10 might be an over. Let's just call it 5. However, you got heaps of major contracts this year. I'm gonna say you're gonna need 15 contract managers in that space. Yeah. So we know that Sue has got 20 plus herself. She's got 21. Yeah, and so on and so forth, right? If we were to duplicate that, here we go. Let's just say, for argument's sake, I'm going to put 10. I'm going to put 6 here. I'm going to put 2. And put 2 here. Yeah. So it could look something like this, or it could look like we know that we need 15, but we only resource with 10, and we know that 3, for example. So it depends on how you want to use it. And in looking at this, I'm clear on what the processes are. I know. Forgot about operational excellence. Maybe operational excellence. I need 5 people in that space. So the things that you got to think about, right, that feeds into a operating model, you would have different areas such as, so you need to think about your strategy, right? You got to think about your strategy. What's your strategy? In terms of the next 24 months, right? And then what drives your strategy would be, of course, you've got your vision and your mission. Okay, and then drives your strategy. You got a vision here. And then you would have your action plan as well. And of course you also got your implementation program to implement that strategy. Yeah. So you got these things to consider, right, on how things are driving. And when you now combine your operating model, which is what you need, if your operating model has got to address what your core deliverables are on a year-on-year basis, and then you got to factor on top of it the program or the strategy in terms of what's evolving your team or your function. You got to slap on additional people, right? Because you can't be driving growth for the organization, whether it's technology or transformation, or you're trying to be better at certain areas. You're trying to move towards digitization, and yet still maintain the same amount of people in delivering your day-to-day. Most organizations are understaffed, right? So that's really bad enough. So if you're understaffed and you're trying to deliver that, then really, if I look into this, I go, we've got a problem here. Something's going to be affected. Could it be the quality in terms of, or the value we're trying to deliver in our partnering? Is it going to be impacted? If our partner is impacted, then are we going to be getting good sourcing outcomes? If we don't have good sourcing outcomes, then what about we're going to have more issues when we get to post award or post sourcing, where there'll be more heavy lifting by the strategic and contract management team within each category, or perhaps your supply chain might be struggling to support the supply requirements of the business. Or you might even have an issue where your operations excellence team is not providing the level of support that the entire function needs to deliver that. So we've got to be able to take a step back once and look at this, put in the vision and mission, consider that, understanding what your strategy over the next 24 months is, understand the action plan, understand the implementation program, and look at this in what we're delivering. This might evolve at the end of that strategy of 24 months, or it might evolve in the middle. Perhaps we might be starting a new strategy and we go, at this point in time, we do not have the funding for partnering, hence we're going to grade it out, right? Or at this point in time, the indirect and ICT are together, so we might grade it out, right? And we could say, so I'm going to put this here. I could create a legend that says grade out areas to begin in 12 months. Yeah. For example, yeah. So it's not a it's not a perfect drawing or a perfect diagram, but yeah, I hope it does give everyone a simple idea on what the operating model is. It's not a org chart. An org chart would be different to this. Yeah, it's not an org chart. It's not a strategy. It's not an action plan. It's not an implementation program. It's not a vision or mission. Please raise any questions or any comments, if you will, and I'll try to answer them. I hope you enjoyed this video today. It's not I hope it's not complicated. It's easily understandable. It's not some advanced drawings or whiz bang animation. There is just straightforward, as simple as possible. It gives everyone. It gives me an idea on the delivery life cycle. It gives me the understanding of what the key delivery components are. It gives me the idea of what we are underpinned by. For example, where there's governance, that's where the buck stops, right? And the governance, as you can see, is all areas touches governance. Just to give you an example in terms of the thought process, and of course we're all being sheltered, or maybe shelter is not the good word, but the sky covers in terms of the vision all of us across all. And then we've got different documents that talks about vision, strategy, action plan, implementation. I hope that's been helpful, and I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you.